Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Families whose loved ones are believed to be buried in a landfill just north of Winnipeg are expressing relief that a search appears imminent. The family of Mercedes Myron spoke today at the site of the former Camp Mercedes near the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Grandmother Donna Bartlett says an advisory committee is also being set up that will include the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, the families, and Long Plain First Nation if they wish to take part. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew announced on Tuesday that stage one of the search is over. That included getting a budget and necessary approvals in place. Next up will be the construction of buildings, including a healing center and a trial search. Today, Bartlett thanked supporters and the Premier for getting to this point.
It was a long 2 years. It should have never happened, but at least it's getting done, and I am so happy. My granddaughter is happy, Mercedes' sister Brandy, her mom is happy. We're all excited that it's going to be done. We did not know how long before we get to bring her home, but we will get her home, and that's the most exciting part of it all. It started.
Families also had the chance to visit the Prairie Green landfill on Tuesday. Melissa Robinson is the cousin of Morgan Harris.
Just to let her know that, our promise to her is going to be fulfilled and that we were going to come for her. So it was a good feeling.
The federal government recently acknowledged that the Lake Manitoba, Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project would cause significant harm to surrounding Indigenous communities in Manitoba. Now, the Interlake Reserves Tribal Council is calling on the province to follow suit and drop the project. APTN's Sierra Bettens has the story.
This is not going to be any different with this channel. Historically, it's gotten worse every time, and that's the same thing we believe will happen with this channel. It's not going to save us from flooding. It's going to continue to make us the sacrifice for Manitoba.
Treaty 2 leaders were in Winnipeg to bring attention to the harm they say will be caused by the Lake Manitoba, Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project. The project was proposed to prevent future flooding by creating two 24-kilometer-long flood diversion channels. Last week, Federal Environment Minister Sigvio Bo jumped on the bandwagon with the chiefs. He said the provincial plan would cause foreseeable harm. Now, the Interlake Reserves Tribal Council is calling on the province to do the same.
We're hopeful that moving forward, the government of Manitoba's water management strategy includes us in being part of that strategy, as well as taking our status as important rights holders, our inherent rights and treaty rights, into consideration while pragmatically moving forward on projects profoundly impacting our communities and way of life.
In April, the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada said the Outlet Channels project could cause damage to the physical and cultural heritage of the First Nations. At the Thursday press conference, AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick said Manitoba has a duty to consult them and put First Nations leadership at the center of environmental projects like this one.
First Nations must take the lead on these environmental impact assessments. They must be the decision makers over the use of their lands and their territories, that their citizens have been stewards of long before the federal and the provincial governments were created.
They also underscored the impact flooding has had on their communities 13 years after diverting water away from Winnipeg, displacing tens of thousands of band members. To this day, some are unable to return home.
So the roads right now in Lake St. Martin that people, our elders, like to go back there and visit where they grew up, but they can't now because of the road. The road was washed out.
The Interlake Tribal Council says the Outlet Channels project will only cause more problems. Carl Zadnik is the council's CEO. He suggests something more sustainable.
To capture the floodwater and then, I guess put it through osmosis or some kind of system that would refine the water so that could be used and maybe reallocated to people of need that are going through drought. So it's a little more expensive, but again, it's more futuristic thinking in terms of green energy and climate change.
Lake Manitoba Chief Cornell McLean said the Tribal Council is scheduled to meet with the province on July 18th to discuss a way forward. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A federal court judge has dismissed a court challenge by the Innu Nation. The Innu leaders asked the federal court to review a memorandum of understanding between the federal government and the Nunatuhavut Community Council in Labrador. Annette Francis has the details.
The 68-page decision was released yesterday, and so far both parties are claiming a win. Todd Russell, a former Liberal MP, is the president of Nunatuhavut, or NCC, the defendants of this case.
This win was an affirming win, that in fact we do have a strong, on the face of it, case for Aboriginal rights. And so we want to be at a table to be able to give expression to those rights, to talk about what our needs and priorities are for our communities. And this court decision certainly paves the way for that to happen.
The NCC represents over 6,000 members who claim to be Inuit in Labrador. The Innu Nation filed for a judicial review of the Memorandum of Understanding the Liberals signed in 2019 between the NCC and former Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett. At that time, Innu Nation Chief Simon Poku said recognition of the NCC, who do not have Section 35 rights, is a threat to his nation.
A group who call themselves NCC, that they want to take our rights, they want to take our lands.
According to the court decision, the MOU is an agreement only. It does not recognize the NCC as an Aboriginal people under Section 35. Matt McPherson is a lawyer for the Innu Nation.
The decision confirms what Innu Nation wanted confirmed for all of the worlds to know and to be clear on, which is that the Nunatuhavut Community Council, or NCC, has never been recognized as an Aboriginal people under the Constitution, and they have never been recognized as having Section 35 rights.
Russell firmly maintains his organization legitimately holds Section 35 Indigenous rights.
I would say with all confidence that there is no other group in Canada, certainly not in Eastern Canada or Northeast Canada, that has such a strong prima facie case to Aboriginal rights as the Nunatuhavut Inuit. I would also say that we are in a very, very strong legal position, as this win is one of many that we have had in the courts.
Russell says after 5 years, it's now up to the federal government to make a commitment to get back to the table with the NCC. McPherson says the MOU has no legal effect in the Innu Nation and will continue to protect their rights.
Innu Nation will be watching what Canada is doing with NCC very closely and continuing to aggressively advocate to ensure that Innu Nation's rights and Innu Nation's, 8,000 year plus existence in Labrador is not threatened by a group of settlers who are pretending to be something that they're not.
Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The First Nation School Board in Yukon says schools under its jurisdiction are beginning to show improved literacy rates. The school board took over 8 Yukon schools in 2022. Only one of which had average reading scores. The board says after only 1 year of implementing its literacy program, student test results have increased up to 14 reading scores. The board has since expanded to 11 schools. 3 of those schools now have students reading within an average range. This year, the board made it compulsory for students to receive 90 minutes of structured literacy per day. The board credits their team of 5 coaches who travel to schools and a tutoring program for older students for turning things around.
We are so excited about our results, and so again, it wasn't news to us that our results were dismal and not okay in the Yukon. So that was very clear when we came on and were given this responsibility of improving education in the Yukon for our First Nation school board schools. And so we've seen increases in almost all of our schools and all of our students.
We've seen significant growth this year. We're that much closer to average. We do have still a ways to go, and our goal really is that we have students who are confident readers.
Wicked weather in southern Manitoba sees a tornado touch down and damage a powwow arbor, and our panel is here to talk about those crisp $5 treaty payments. That and more still to come. Welcome back. People in southwestern Manitoba were on edge yesterday as Environment Canada reported several tornadoes touching down in a 300-kilometer radius, with the addition of golf ball-sized hail as well. The storm came in from Saskatchewan with the first tornado warning at around 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. For the next 3 hours, it traveled through southwest Manitoba. The worst of the damage reported so far happened on the Swan Lake First Nation, about 3 hours southwest of Winnipeg. The powwow arbor was badly damaged, and the roof on one home was also damaged. Thankfully, there were no injuries. Councillor Craig Soldier told APTN News that plans are underway to rebuild the arbor as the annual powwow is just 2 weeks away. Extreme storm chaser Jordan Carruthers, who provided this footage, says it was quite a powerful storm system.
There's 3 grain bins that we have for our buffalo. Those were picked up and thrown. We know where 2 are. We don't know where the 3rd one is. We're thinking it's in our valley. The one grain bin almost landed on one of the community members' vehicles when he was trying to get away from the storm itself.
When we pulled up there, we could see right away that there was a bunch of tin that had been pulled off of the roof of the arbor, and a bunch of actual whole roofing panels with the 2x10 boards and everything had snapped off and gotten blown into the field around it, and there's quite a bit of damage in that small area. But thankfully nobody was injured or anything. Nobody was there when it happened.
Hopefully they can get everything repaired there over the next 2 weeks. Well, every year around this time, representatives of the Crown of Canada fan out across Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta to pay First Nations members their $5 treaty payment. Our Truth in Politics panel is here to weigh in on the subject. Policy analyst Jennifer Leywitz is in Prince Albert, and Winnipeg Free Press columnist Negon Sinclair is in Bad River, Wisconsin. Jennifer, Negon, thanks for being with us. Negon, starting with you, have you collected your treaty money this year?
I don't think I've collected for probably a decade or so, and as you know, it builds up, so you can go and collect it all at once. So I'm probably saving it up so I can get, I don't know, maybe a dinner out of it.
Right. Jennifer, when was the last time you collected yours?
I don't think I've ever collected it, and I know there's a form you can fill out with INAC, but it's $5, and with the price of gas, I think it would cost me that to go get it.
Right, exactly. Negon, what does the payment mean to you, though, personally?
It all depends on when you collect it, really. Big part of it is the ceremonial purpose of it. So usually there's an RCMP officer there. They're dressed. And, one year I asked, why is it that these are brand new $5 bills? And there's an actual policy which says that they're supposed to give out the crisp brand new bills in honor and recognition of the treaty. To really honor and recognize the treaty, they would increase the amount because the land has certainly increased in value, but our payments have not.
Yeah, more on that in a second. Jennifer, I guess, having not collected it ever, but does it have any personal meaning to you?
I think so. To me, it brings back to the signaling of the agreement that was signed, especially in Treaty 4, where my community is, and that agreement that was signed in 1874. And now the Crown kind of breaching their obligations and not adjusting it to inflation. But for me, it was a part of that signing and that agreement that goes back so long ago.
Yeah, you both kind of touched on this, Negon. Do you think First Nations gave up too much for too little in terms of the value of land versus the $5? We had a couple of team members who collected this week 2 years worth and got a smoky from the hot dog guy outside. Do you think this should be increased a bit?
I hope it was a good smoky. Here's what I'll tell you is that, it's not as if the government hasn't raised these figures before. We have to remember that Treaty 1 and 2 were actually $3 an annuity per year. And because of the $5 negotiated under Treaty 3, everyone was raised up to $5 and then it stayed there. The reality is that there was an understanding at treaty time amongst our ancestors that both sides would benefit from and continue their livelihood. What that meant is that as the land changed, as our needs changed, as the growth and relationship changed, certainly evidence during Treaty 6 and 7 where the medicine chest clause is added, there was an interest to make sure that both sides would at some way benefit and then revisit the agreement. And certainly what that tells you is that there's not been an interest on Canada's side to revisit the agreement because they're getting a pretty good deal. All Canadians are getting a pretty good deal for simply $5 a year while they benefit in billions virtually each.
Jennifer, there's the $10 billion Robinson Superior Treaty settlement that's recently been reached. Do you think that will have an impact on future annuities across Canada?
I think it may. I think as long as we continue to open up that conversation and, you see chiefs across the country that are talking about this and bringing the government to court over it, I think it really just depends on how much pressure the government faces back and how the government is feeling at the end of the day, because it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like we're in this place now where we're finally hitting that wall where a lot of these conversations are starting to be had, and we are seeing class action lawsuits and we're seeing negotiations, especially as it pertains to like agriculture benefits and stuff that relates back to those agreements made so long ago with the intention that those obligations would be fulfilled and hopefully adjusted to our needs today, but are just not happening.
Niigaan, my apologies. I understand you're fasting. Sorry for bringing up the Smokies there.
Not quite fasting. We're in the middle of northern Wisconsin, in the middle of ceremony. I'm literally in ceremony gear right now. We're actually building sand teachings right now. But it is in the middle of the heat, and lunchtime is about an hour and a half late. So yeah, thanks a lot for that.
We'll let you get back to it. Jennifer Niigaan, thanks so much for being with us.
Miigwech.
APTN Investigates is taking a deep dive into the Assembly of First Nations. We have a preview of tomorrow night's episode after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And this photo sent in by Toby Wilson, enjoying that beautiful sunset over the water. Thanks for sending that in, Toby. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now time for a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 26 in Halifax, showers and 25 in Fredericton. Rain and 19 in Kuujjuaq, 8 and cloudy in Nain. 24 with rain in Montreal, showers, and 17 in Val-d'Or. 18 and cloudy in Sault Ste. Marie, 19 with showers for North Bay. Cloudy and 20 in Thunder Bay, 22 and cloudy skies in Sioux Lookout. 20 in God's Lake, 22 for Norway House. 25 in Winnipeg, 24 in Brandon and Dauphin. 27 in Regina, cloudy and 25 for Saskatoon. 21 in Meadow Lake, showers and 20 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 21 in High Level, showers and 21 in Fort McMurray. 21 for Edmonton, 26 in Lethbridge. 17 with rain in Vancouver, showers and 22 in Kamloops. 14 with sprinkles in Prince George, showers and 17 in Smithers. Sun's out and 21 in Old Crow, 15 in Whitehorse. 19 for Yellowknife, 20 in Norman Wells and Wrigley. Plus 3 in Sax Harbor, 1 degree warmer in Paulatuck. 8 in Chesterfield, 10 in Baker Lake. Flurries and plus 1 in Resolute, 5 in Iqaluit. We could say the Assembly of First Nations is the top rung of First Nations governance in Canada. But behind closed doors, the organization has been plagued by infighting and power struggles. Tomorrow night on an all-new episode of APTN Investigates, journalist Christopher Reid looks at some of the challenges facing Indigenous governance from pre-contact to today. Here's a preview.
Colonization tried but failed to eliminate the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And Leroy Hill knows that because he's part of it.
My name is Hohahis Leroy Hill. I'm the council secretary for the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I'm also a faith keeper, and I'm a teacher of language and also a student of our history and our traditions.
We met at the Confederacy's old council house, built in 1863, 4 years before Canada was founded.
So they built this for our government to meet here. Councils functioned here pretty peacefully for quite a while before the Indian Act experiment was imposed.
It was at this location in 1924 that the traditional government of the Haudenosaunee first read and rejected the Indian Act.
They held a meeting for days and days. We have minutes of it. The discussion, and they went through section of that Indian Act, and they said, this sounds good, but we reject it because of this. And they went through every section that I first drafted the Indian Act, and as a united group, the General Indian Council it was called, they sent Six Nations back to tell the federal government, the Crown, that we reject it, and the reasons are enclosed from our minutes.
You can catch APTN Investigates Some Assembly Required tomorrow night, immediately following the APTN National News. And we'll speak with Christopher Reid here on tomorrow's newscast. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. Join Creason here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the day's news. And I will see you back here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Of course, for much more, you can always head over to our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Big Oilers win coming tonight. I can feel it. We'll see you back here tomorrow.